this entire state to America's south into a narco state. The drug cartels don't just run the American southern border. Effectively, they run the Mexican government at this point. And if serious pressure isn't brought to bear on the Mexican government to disconnect and fight the drug cartels, this problem is going to continue to fester.
Let me ask you a question that I think will appeal to fans of our lengthy relationship who remember some of our early skirmishes. But because a drug is killing nearly 100,000 people a year in America, you're very determined to bring in all sorts of new regulations, rules, laws, and so on. Why do you not feel as strongly about the number of people being killed by guns?
Well, I mean, I certainly feel horrible for people who are killed by guns. There's two main distinctions. One is that we actually have a right in the United States to keep and bear arms, whereas you do not have a right to actually ingest or distribute fentanyl. And two is that the solutions that are proposed for preventing the distribution of fentanyl in the United States are likely to be significantly more impactful than many of the gun regulations that have been proposed in order to stop the so-called gun violence epidemic.
All right. That's the backstory.
Yeah, that's the backstory. But what stood out to me was he said, we need to be able to separate ingest and sell, right? Distribute. Yeah. But what stood out to me was he said, you don't have a right to ingest drugs.
Okay.
And so I thought about that. I texted it to you guys. It's like, do we have a right to ingest drugs? The Constitution gives us a right to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Is ingesting, which one of those three is ingesting drugs?
All three.
Well, I would say
depending on which drug. All three. But, whatever you think about, whatever you think about drug use, I mean, I'm not making a moral judgment here. I'm more asking a legal question and a constitutional question. Does a human being have the right under the Constitution to put whatever in their body they want? And the government doesn't have a right to say yes or no. That's separate from the question of distributing it. Okay. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think, and then I can tell you what I think.
Are we talking about the legality of it or the philosophical?
Wherever you want to take it. I'm more taking it from a philosophical lens, but constitutional lens. How this comes founded.
So, I mean, obviously, the Constitution obviously outlines the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. A lot of people, they talk about the militia, well-regulated, yada, yada, yada. Fuck you. I'm going to buy my guns and you can't do anything about it. I have a natural right to defend myself. And that right, they say it comes from God. It's a natural right, right? Do we have
correction? It's not they say, it does, but go ahead.
All right, calm down. I'm on your side.
We're not just, it's Easter weekend after all, but go.
But do we have a natural right to ingest? I mean, he's speaking specifically about fentanyl, but I guess we can broaden it to all drugs, illicit or otherwise. Do we have a natural right to ingest drugs?
Oh, you're asking me? I thought you were answering the question, and then you just ended it with the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did Michael do the exact same thing and you didn't say a peep?
Well, you started to answer his question, so I assumed you would answer it. Listen, yes, I think they do. I mean, because essentially what you're saying is that if you're going to allow the government to regulate what you can ingest, well, then what if tomorrow they decide that you can't ingest ashwagandha or like green tea? I mean, it's, so yeah, I think so. Now, in terms of regulating what can be sold, that's obviously a very separate conversation. And that's where I think it should be addressed if you're going to address it. Particularly if it's coming across the border and it's like doing it, and that's the issue. But in terms of what you can ingest, yeah, I mean, it's especially when you look at some drugs like marijuana, shrooms, things that just grow on the ground, you're going to regulate what you can pick off the ground and eat or smoke, I guess. So
they
no,
do all of that.
Huh?
They already do all of that.
Not ingest though.
Yeah, they absolutely do. They absolutely regulate the food. They regulate food. They regulate the stuff that we grow that comes out of the ground. And if they can regulate what you can sell, how else are you supposed to get fentanyl?
Well, okay, no, they regulate food, but take for instance when New York had the ban on the big gulp. It wasn't illegal to drink a big gulp. It was illegal to sell a big gulp. So like, yes, they regulate food and kind of the parameters that food needs to be in to be sold, but it doesn't regulate, like even in school lunches, like they regulate what the school lunch could be, but that doesn't stop a kid from taking 2 school lunches and eating both of them, right?
Isn't that a distinction without a difference? I mean, you can ingest a big gulp, but you just can't sell it. Well, how the hell are you supposed to get a big gulp?
I mean, you can't sell drugs today, but you can get them.
I understand. I'm just saying if we're going to allow them to regulate what we can and cannot sell, then, and we agree that that's okay, that that's their right to do that, then they can regulate and how we what we ingest, because they can regulate how we sell.
Hold up. Straw man that you use often.
What are you talking about?
They're already doing it. Isn't the whole premise of this show kind of that they're doing stuff they shouldn't be doing?
Why did you think that I was agreeing with them?
But you're using an argument that says they're already doing it, so of course they have the right to regulate it. No.
The follow-up question was, do they have the right to sell it? Do they have the right to regulate the sale of it? And which I don't think that they should. If we're talking about the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, they regulate our ability to sell all sorts of stuff that they shouldn't.
So, yeah. So on the use part, first of all, this is not philosophical. I'm a grown ass man.
Okay.
Who other than myself gets to decide what I put in my body or don't put in my body?
The government. They shouldn't.
So the first argument to Ben Shapiro is, I'm a grown ass man. I can decide for myself what goes into my body, what doesn't go into my body. Thank you, Ben Shapiro. Second, there is a constitutional, there's not an amendment dedicated to the right to ingest drugs, but there is an amendment that has been interpreted to give us a right to privacy, meaning what I do in my house or what I do with my body is not any of the government's business. That's the Fourth Amendment. I think the strongest constitutional argument for it, which I'll even say right here, he might be right on the constitutional argument, but I would say the strongest argument for it is, under the Fourth Amendment, I have a right to privacy about what I take or do not take.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why, yes, I mean, you do have a strong right to privacy, and that's why the government can't access.
What? Charles Blain, did you just say? What did you just say?
I was agreeing with Michael.
No. Repeat what you just said.
What exactly did I say? That
we have a right to what?
Privacy.
To privacy. I agree. Anyway, I agree with you, and that's why they can't access things like, if you're taking antidepressants or stuff like that. So yeah, I think you're exactly right. Now, I do think that some conservatives would make the argument that there is a moral obligation to prevent it, and that they would use government as a way to stop people from harming themselves. Now, I don't agree with that argument, but I do think that there are people who would make that argument.
And I would respond to them. And I would respond to them, since the drug war started and since we got heavy drug laws in this country, has drug use gone up or down?
Well, that's because the CIA.
That too. Has it been an effective deterrent?
What? Okay. Oh, we got Brian Searle. He's live. Hell yeah.
My little brother.
Ask him what he thinks. Can he comment? Because I'd love to know what he thinks.
He says if you're affecting someone else or not, like if you have a child, or are you hurting that child by taking that drug and maybe you're neglecting that child? So that's sort of where I was going to go with this, is that there are externalities to your actions, which is fine if you're 100% responsible for those externalities, right? But the government already, they socialize the cost of your actions to all of us. So I would, if they're going to stop doing that, fine. Take as much fentanyl as you want, smoke as much weed as you want, do as much coke as you want. I don't care. Like on a pure philosophical basis, yeah, you should have the freedom to do that. But if the government is going to step in and say, "Oh, Michael, he lost all of his money in Bitcoin, and so he got a bad drug problem. He went off the rails, did a little cocaine, got into a drunk driving accident." And now we got to pay for his kids, all this other stuff. If they stop doing that, then yeah, when you lose your Bitcoin, it goes to zero. That's fine. Do whatever you want.
It ain't going to zero. And to respond, hey, Brian Searle, my favorite human on the planet, or one of them, my little brother. There are laws for child neglect. You don't need to enforce the drug use law in order to prevent child neglect.
If you do so much cocaine that you become like useless, or whatever drug, I don't care. I'm not going to pick on cocaine. I know that's your favorite one, so I apologize. But if you do so much that you can't hold a job or something like that, you're not necessarily technically neglecting your children, then, you know, your family has to go on the public dole. Meth, I'm being reliably told that your favorite is meth, actually. If we have to pay for that negative outcome as a society, then society has an obligation to say, no, you can't do that.
Well, and I think that's the argument that essentially Ben Shapiro and some conservatives would make, is that as a society, if you want to continue to progress, you would need to limit.
Why are you talking this way?
Why do you keep interrupting every time making a good point?
Yeah.
That you would limit what people can do. And I think that's the argument he's making. Do I agree with that? Probably not. But I mean, because here's the same thing though. You can, like anything could be the case for anything. You could just eat a lot of food and be morbidly obese and unable to take care of your kids. And so it's the case. You could take a lot of vitamins and it could be just too many that it ends up being. Okay, I'll stop.
Well, yeah, we do have lots of people not taking care of themselves, getting obese, eating terrible food, smoking cigarettes, whatever. And there's tons of externalities, but we don't say you can't eat food with sugar in it.
I agree. But I'm also not saying that the government is consistent in their enforcement or in their laws or in their morals or in their ethics or everything else that they do. But if I think I'm still correct that if the government is going to say, we're going to take care of you if you fuck up, no matter what or take care of, your family or whatever, whatever the case may be, when Michael is homeless because he doesn't have any more Bitcoin, then we have to take care of that homeless Michael. And it'll be easy to spot because he's huge.
Well, true. This is true. So should we, I have a question. Should we regulate this? Can you guys hear that? No, right?
All right. And then what are you drinking during the day?
Soda.
Sodies.
Soda pops.
Okay. And how much do you think you drink a day?
8 to 12 a day.
8 to 12 cans?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's regular soda?
No, it's that.
It's diet. Okay.
Our mom told us when we were younger, if we ate a sugar, you drink a Diet Coke afterwards and it'll cancel out the sugar.
That's
okay,
true.
so see,
That's true.
What is the difference between like someone who is like that and has a child, or even themselves, because now they're going to be on the public dollar when assuming they're not working, which I don't think they are. What is the difference between someone like that and someone who's just doing drugs? And so are we going to regulate if
Yes, Brian Searle. Her forehead does have a fat roll. There is a 0% chance that those two whales are not on the public dole.
Nice.
Huh?
That's not nice.
I don't care. There's no chance that they're not considered handicapped by the state, can't work, can't walk, do whatever, they're getting paid for by something, and maybe it's chubby chasers online. I doubt it, but they're getting government money. And if they're getting government money because they totally screwed up their whole metabolic system and they can't control it, they think that if you drink a Diet Coke, it cancels out sugar. If you eat a sugar, I don't know what sugar is, but whatever, cancels it out. If that's what's happening, then yeah, they should not be allowed to do that.
No, well, they shouldn't be allowed.
Correct. And if they continue to do it, then they get off the public dole.
How about before we start using laws and regulations to regulate what people can and cannot do, we give good information? How about let's just start with the FDA?
I don't hear you.
What happened to you? Start with the FDA. Your microphone cut off.
Maybe it's the FDA that cut off your microphone.
Nope, can't hear you now.
Yeah.
I think what you were going to say was Brad is right.
Or maybe he was going to say get rid of the. I mean, he probably was going to say get rid of the FDA, which I disagree with.
I think he's talking about getting, the FDA needs to get good information, and you're muted, but give good information and educate the public and stop using things like the totally wild and inaccurate food pyramid. Michael?
That-
I mean, we heard you for like a split second, and then you just
yeah,
no, whatever you did.
it worked for a second.
I mean, if you're watching this live, this is not typical. This doesn't always happen. Are you back?
Oh, I'm back.
Okay, you're back.
Yeah, I was saying that we'll start with the food pyramid and the education and what we're recommending to people that they should eat, how they should take care of their bodies. Second, how about we stop subsidizing things that make people sick?
Like corn?
Yeah, like corn, like sodies. the number one purchase of, or the number one expense of welfare checks is soda in the United States.
But you have to understand why, though. I mean, you go into a lot of these communities that don't have access to grocery stores, like to robust grocery stores. All you're getting is a soda, and it's cheaper than water. Like, and chips are cheaper than like healthy food. Or you might not even have a fruit at your local Dollar Tree. All you're going to get is like free, like dried plantains. So I think it's an even worse problem when you boil it down to that point. But I agree, we should not be subsidizing that, no matter how much I like to put corn syrup in my coffee in the morning.
My point being that our government has policies that encourage people to not take care of themselves. We should probably invert that and have government policies and information that encourages people to be healthy. So that would be a starting point.
You know, Briscoe Kane, we had him on the show. He filed a bill, I think maybe 2 sessions in a row, that would have banned people who were getting food stamps in Texas from buying junk food, and it never passed. And he got a lot of heat for it. But he filed, I think it was 2 sessions in a row. I know it was at least 1 session, but I think it was 2 in a row.
Right, but that's I mean, that goes back to I think that's a good idea. You know, if you're going to get government money, then there's only certain things you can spend it on, right? If I'm giving you money, Charles, then I'm going to try to say like, hey, you can only spend it on this.
And
right.
And according to Callie Means, former pharmaceutical executive.
I don't think you're talking into your microphone. I think you're talking into your computer.
Microphone's working. I think he's using his computer mic now.
There we go. I mean, I
won't make my point.
Who's Callie Means?
You'll have to look him up. He's a former pharmaceutical rep and lobbyist for the food industry. He's now a whistleblower or talks about it publicly. And he said that when he was lobbying for the food industry, they bought off the NAACP to say that prohibiting the use of food stamp money for soda was racist, and NAACP was lobbying against that, removing that. Because they got bought off.
Is that racist, Charles?
Yes. No.
Well, I mean, it kind of sounds like you were making a point similar earlier, saying that these people they go.
Well, that's not just. I mean, it's not just black communities though. Those are like poor white communities too that have. Yeah. So I don't think it's racist. I think it's. I don't even want to say it's discriminatory against poor people. I think it just puts them in a weird position when they're unable to do so. But the same thing, I can't remember whatever the name of that, the big kind of conglomerate of cigarette companies is, made the same argument that banning menthol cigarettes is racist against black people because we love menthol. And so yeah, I mean, they're successful in making those arguments a lot of times. I don't know why people listen to it, but.
So wait, is smoking menthols? Is that I think was it a black thing?
Yeah, I think a lot of black people smoke menthols. Yeah.
Do you smoke menthols?
I don't smoke any cigarettes, but when I was in high school and I dabbled in cigarettes, they were menthol.
Why? Why is that a black thing?
Well, I mean, I didn't go to school with a lot of black people. It was just like a thing that we were smoking Newports at the time. And so we were that's just what we were smoking. But, and granted, when I say smoking, I smoked cigarettes for like 2 months and I inhaled half the time. So I didn't really smoke cigarettes, but I don't know why it's a black thing, but I know that a lot of black people smoke menthol cigarettes.
Okay. That's fair. So, I mean, going back to do we have a right to ingest fentanyl? Yeah, I think that if we wanted
Searle smoked Newports too. I mean, I don't know if that should be cheering that on, but yes.
Gross. Brian Searle. Ugh. Y'all are nasty. American Spirits, yellows. That was the best. Was the best. and that I don't smoke them anymore, but whatever. They're probably still the best. I don't know.
American spirits, don't those not have filters? Like, aren't those Native American?
Oh, ugh, God, I don't live in Appalachia.
They have filters.
Going back to the original, topic, do we have a right to ingest fentanyl? Sure, you can ingest it if you want, unless the government is going to pick up the tab for your bad actions. In which case, no, you don't.
Well, then you do that on the back end. Say that if you go to the hospital with a fentanyl overdose and you don't have insurance, then we won't help you. I mean, that's not a logical answer, but I think you do it on the back end and say that, if X happens, we will not help if you are doing these drugs, rather than saying you can't ingest them.
Michael?
Require drug tests.
For?
Government assistance.
Okay. And then
That's
otherwise, so long as you're not getting government assistance, then everything should be legal.
Well, I don't agree with I don't agree with your argument necessarily, because so many people are getting government assistance right now that it doesn't justify infringing on somebody's right to put things in their body or not put things in their body that they want to. But if you're concerned. We just used several. We just went through this whole thing about food. So if you're drinking soda, you shouldn't be able to get government assistance, would be the logic of what you're saying.
Sure.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I'm in. All about it.
I don't know that I would say that. I would say if you are getting government assistance to buy food, you should not be able to buy soda. That I would do it that way rather than saying, if we find out you're drinking soda, your government assistance is cut off.
I mean, I don't know. I think I'd cut them off. You're done. I mean, if you're
drinking 12 a day, yeah, sure. Like, I think you should definitely.
Well, 12 sodies. And I think this is. Are they? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going to share this. This is from Mike Cernovich. And he's been talking about marijuana because Glenn Youngkin vetoed a bill to legalize it. He says, I wanted weed legalized. The understanding was people would use it responsibly and for appropriate conditions, like medicine. In LA, people are vaping THC while driving. It's marketed to kids, promoted on every podcast as a laugh. Teenagers are having psychotic breaks. Enough. Yeah.
You want me to respond to that? I mean,
respond. I look, at the end of the day, I don't want the government involved in hardly anything, right? I agree. I don't want the government taking my money or your money or anybody else's money to give to somebody else. And they take as much as they want from me and give as much as they want to somebody else for any reason. I think that's all fucked and a really bad system, and that needs to change. But so long as they're doing that, yeah, I want them to force people to be more responsible.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to respond to Cernovich's hysterical tweet as if it's fact. What I would say is there are rules against driving under the influence. There are rules against marketing drugs to kids. All the things he's pointing out, there are already rules. Why wouldn't you allow adults to ingest a substance in order to prevent all those other things from happening? Plus, it's going to happen anyways. Yeah. People are going to use marijuana whether or not it is legal.
Not unless we have fathers in the home.
Tangent.
I love how you said